even though white is better, that still is what black should have done. Instead, she played bishop f2, and this is just bad. After king f2, knight e5, d4, queen f6 check, king g1, white is much better. So black just has a trick or two here, and assuming white solves that very small puzzle, this enormous center is going to give white an enormous advantage. All right, so the move played in the game was knight to e7. First, though, it's important to take a quick look at knight to g4, which in fact wins against every single move but one. So, quick little puzzle for you if you're interested. How does white not only save the game, but maintain a winning advantage? So we've got to stop queen to f2 mate, and we can't do it with a move like queen takes g4 or queen f3 because queen takes d4 is mating. So there's only one good move, but it's good enough, queen to d2. So that keeps d4 covered and f2 covered, and next we can chase this guy away and play knight to d5 and just start pushing black off the board. So instead of knight to g4, black played knight to e7, which makes sense. I mean, it's a developing move, and it stops knight to d5. Okay, so what should white do now? Well, the answer is basically anything except for what she in fact did. So, all right, when you're 600 points higher rated than your opponent, you shouldn't maybe be overly nervous, but you still have to respect your opponent. And white failed to do that in this game and played d takes e5. Unbelievable. I mean, all right, 1538 is not a world-class player, but it's not, it's not a beginner. And clearly, black is more than good enough to spot that her knight is under attack. So it's just amazing to me that white had so little sense of danger to play d takes e5. So queen to b6 check, and white resigned. I mean, it's made in no more than 2 moves, just a couple of spite interpositions, and that's it. So white gave up here, and that was probably the most embarrassing loss of white's life, I'm going to imagine. And it doesn't really help that it's in a team event either. So, I mean, first of all, if it costs you the match, your teammates will never let you hear the end of it. And, of course, if they win, they'll still never let you hear the end of it because of your goof-up. Anyway, the Canadian team did win 3-1. So, fortunately for the player with white, she didn't cost her team the match. But you never know what will happen with tiebreaks down the road. Anyway, the next game we're going to take a look at is a bit more high level in terms of the players and a bit more sophisticated in terms of the tactics. But nevertheless, it too is a short game and a bit of a blowout. So again, black is the winner in this game, and black is Alexander Grishuk, who's, I think, number 4 in the world still at this point, sneaking up on 2,800 as of this recording. His opponent is a player named Ishua Basil, and he's 2135, so a decent player, but of course not in Grishuk's league. So Basil has white, plays e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, takes, and now he gets a little experimental here with bishop to c4. This is probably not very good, but there is an interesting idea or two behind it. So Grishuk plays knight f6, and here Basil played queen to e2. Probably the best move is queen takes d4, which is not very enterprising, but sometimes it's better just to be safe than to be too clever. So queen to d3, and the position is about equal. Knight takes d4 is in fact not a mistake. It looks like it's just giving away a pawn for free, but it isn't. However, after knight takes e4, well, white can regain the pawn like this: bishop f7 check, king f7, queen h5 check. Okay, not king to g8 because queen d5, and we're going to have something of a repetition of the last game we saw. Actually, no, I guess you can't do that because e6, if knight takes e6, then yeah, there should be a way out of that. Maybe it's tricky. But anyway, at the very least, there's queen takes e4. But the thing to do here is to play g6, queen d5 check, king g7, queen e4, and e5. And black is probably a touch better thanks to his center and the bishops. It's going to take time for those assets to really come into their own, but I think they give him the better long-term prospects. So knight takes d4, going back here, can be played, but queen takes d4 is best. In the game, Basil tried something interesting. It was Queen E2, Knight C6, and now C3. So he's kind of hoping to go into a version of the Mora gambit after DC3, Knight C3. Now, this should be better for black than the regular Mora gambit because it's not clear that Queen to E2 is really what white needed to play. I mean, I think castling instead would have been a better use of the tempo. In fact, I'm sure of it. But nevertheless, I mean, well, certainly if black played E6, then after castles, the game will have transposed into a regular Mora line. But I think probably bishop to G4 even here should give white a slightly worse position. But instead of this, Grishuk played a better move. So he plays bishop to G4, which is a very good move. Takes, knight takes, and, well, okay, this is all part and parcel of white's plan. So here, of course, this looks terrific for black, but Basil had found a little tactical sequence that he thought would regain the pawn and give him a good game. So again, if you're so inclined to work on your tactics, you might want to try to figure out what White's idea was and why that idea fails. All right, so I'm going to assume you've tried if you're interested in trying, and now let's take a look. Bishop F7 check, King F7, Queen C4, so he's going to take the knight if permitted, so Knight E6, and Knight to G5 check. So that was the big idea, but it doesn't work. King E8, Knight takes E6, and now black has not just one, but two ways to win the game. In the game, he played Rook to C8, which is, I think, the simplest conceptually, but Queen to C8 also wins. If Knight C7, then just King to D8, and the knight can't take the rook because the queen is loose. And if Queen takes C8, then Rook C8. And, of course, if Knight F8, then Rook C1, and then Rook H1, and then the knight for dessert since it's trapped. So that would have been more than good enough. In the game, Grishuk played Rook C8, and after Queen A4 check, again, if Knight takes D8, Rook C4, and the Knight on D8, and the Bishop on C1, and for that matter, the Rook on H1, are all loose. So again, Black would win a piece. So in the game, White played Queen A4 check, Queen D7, Queen takes D7, hoping, I guess, for King takes D7, Knight F8, but of course, that's not going to happen. Knight takes F8, or Knight takes D7, excuse me, and White is losing a piece. So he kicked on for 3 more moves, but there's no hope here. Knight G7 check, Bishop G7, Knight to D2, Knight E5 threatening Knight to D3 check, winning even more material, F3, so it stops that, but after Bishop to D7, there's just nothing to play for. Black is up a piece for a pawn, Knight to D3 is still lurking about, Black's bishops are going to come into the game pretty quickly with great effect, and besides that, he is 660 points higher rated, which suggests that he probably has the needed skill to finish the job with an extra piece. So White resigned here. All right, so those were just some very light games, a little easy entertainment, but you know, every once in a while it's kind of fun to see these short games, and also good to engage in a little simple tactical practice. And remember, you know, even very good players were involved in the loss in all 3 games. I mean, all 3 games, the loser was at least 20-48. So not bad players, but they still managed to lose 3 games in a total of 36 moves. So it's certainly a salutary lesson for all of us that you know, blunders are always possible, and you need to stay alert. You need to respect your opponent, or horrible things like this are bound to happen to you. So next time we'll take a look at a much more substantive game, also from the Olympiad. Until then, this is FIDE Master Dennis Monokroussos signing off for ChessLecture.com. Bye-bye.